Hi, and welcome to Week 9 of Gridlocks. This is Michael Beaven with the Akron Beacon Journal and Ohio.com, here as always with Scot Fagerstrom. Karen Sheely filled in last week behind the camera. Kim Barth is back this week. Kim, how you doing? We've got several games here in Week 9 to talk about. We've got a really interesting coaching situation.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start?
Let's start with Manchester, where Jim France is going to go for the record. I guess he's going to be tying the record with a win over Loudonville this week. The record for wins as an Ohio high school football coach. A tremendous accomplishment. He's been coaching for, 40-plus years at Manchester, 1 year at Coventry, and he's one win away from tying the overall record.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I'm 34 years old. This guy's been coaching longer than I've been alive, and almost as long as you've been alive, I think.
No, not quite that long.
But out of respect to Coach France, he's an old school football coach, and I mean that in a very nice way. He's a Springfield graduate, a University of Akron graduate. He comes in, he's at 380 wins. Bob Lutz is the all-time leader with 381 wins. He was in Irontown St. Joseph High School and then Irontown High School. As you mentioned, Coach France, Coventry for a year, Manchester for however many years we wrote about it in the story. You guys can look it up. So if he gets this win, they're playing against Loudonville. If they get this win, they tie. And then in Week 10, they're playing CVCA,
right,
which would have a lot of implications for not only playoff points, but also for the PAC championship.
Right.
So we'll see how they do this week. Ethan Wright, as we've talked about, a tremendous running back as well.
Then we'll move on to Friday night's games. Talmadge Highland and the Suburban American. We're talking about two teams that are both still alive in the quest for championship, right? If Barberton were to lose to Highland next week, could be a three-way tie in that.
Right, in the American Conference, there's still a lot to be determined in both the Suburban American and the Suburban National.
Right.
I saw Talmadge last week. They got to a 3-0 lead against Barberton, and then Barberton started doing what they've been doing to everybody else, which is run left, run right, pass the ball every which way. Key Thompson, we've talked about him, Zane Reese, tremendous players. But in this game, as you said, a lot to play for, especially for Highland. They're looking forward to that game in Week 10 against Barberton. Jake Rogers had a huge game last week for Highland in their win over Copley. The kid amassed almost 500 all-purpose yards and scored 5 touchdowns. Yeah. So you look at them, they're probably the favorite in this game. And then Barberton, they are hosting Kent Roosevelt. Barberton's one of our undefeated teams. I would say that the Magics will probably take care of business on Friday.
Yep. And then the big one on Friday night is in the City Series. We're looking at defending champion East against perennial powerhouse in the city, Bookdale, both unbeaten, still in the city. East with 1 loss. Bookdale has 3 losses, I think. But both played pretty good non-conference schedules this year, and this is going to be a war up at the Infocision Stadium.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Woodridge and Coventry last week. Woodridge defeated Coventry. It was kind of like a play-in game for the playoffs, and also determine who wins the league championship, assuming that Woodridge doesn't stub their toe against some of their opponents coming up. But you look at East, they haven't been challenged the last few weeks.
Yeah.
They've just rolled through the city. They've defeated teams like North and Kenmore Garfield and Firestone and Ellett that really, with all due respect, haven't given them much competition.
Right.
This will be a competitive game. Bookdale's going to come in. They're going to be fired up. Christopher Robinson and some of those other guys that make plays for them. But East, you look at them, until Devoneer Floyd gets stopped, which hasn't really happened much this year, other than, really Jackson defeated him, but I think Devoneer still had a good game in that one. So I would say East has the advantage on paper. Bookdale has the history on their side.
Right.
But not all those legendary Bookdale players will be suiting up on Friday. So it should be a lot of fun over there at UA. I understand they're having a tailgating event in the City Series. Both schools are putting together something kind of similar to Hoban and St. Vincent St. Mary's, so it should be interesting to see how this game plays out.
Yeah, you throw the records out the window when the two rivals like this play each other for the City Series title. It's going to be a heck of a ball game.
It should be. And moving to outside of the city, getting back into the Suburban League, the National Conference, still a lot to be determined there. Wadsworth is undefeated. They are hosting Brecksville this week. You've got Stowe coming off their win over Hudson last Thursday night. Stowe is at Cuyahoga Falls and Hudson at Twinsburg. So those are going to be interesting games as well to determine the National Conference champion.
Right, Hudson and Stowe each with 1 loss, and Hudson and Wadsworth square off in Week 10. So again, Wadsworth can run the table and win it, or if Hudson were to knock them off, you could have a 3-way tie in that conference as well. There's a lot to be determined yet in the Suburban League.
Exactly. And then real quick, the Portage Trail Conference, Mogador is at home this week against Valley Christian out of Youngstown. Mogador is undefeated. And then in the PTC Metro, Woodridge, coming off that big win last week, they are at Norton this week.
Right, and Mogador and Rootstown are on a collision course next week for the PTC. What's that, the county division?
The county division, yep. So there you go, a little bit of Week 9, looking forward to Week 10.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.